Today I'm going to teach you a 4-campaign structure for Ecommerce Performance Max that will boost your return on ad spend and profit if you do it right. My Google Ads agency, Big Flare, we've generated over $150 million in e-commerce revenue for our clients. And the strategy I'm going to show you is something we use on a lot of our client accounts because it just works so well. The 4-campaign strategy also works for standard shopping ads, so even if you're using standard shopping, you can still use this process exactly as I'm about to show you. So what we do with this strategy is we're going to split out products into performance-based tiers and then create campaigns based on those tiers. So stay tuned because I'm going to show you the tiers to set up, the thresholds to use, segmenting your products without needing any fancy tools, safely transitioning your existing campaign structure over, and a whole lot more. All right, with that said, let's dive straight in. All right, guys, so here are the exact 4 campaigns that you want to set up for your Performance Max campaign or your standard shopping ads, and the campaigns are called Profitable, Costly, Flukes, and Zombies. Now, all of these have a very specific meaning and they're based on thresholds that you can set up based on the ROAS and cost levels in the account. So this is just what they're called. It'll give you some idea of what we're doing here, but let's dive into exactly how to think about this and exactly how to create these campaigns by segmenting your product list correctly. So here's a handy visualization that helps you sort of visualize what we actually mean when we're talking about these 4 campaign names. By the way, credit to a very smart Google Ads fella called Mike Rhodes, who was the first person to teach me this way of visualizing this campaign setup, like using the thresholds on the graph like this. It's a handy way of visualizing it, so let me explain it to you. On the x-axis, we have return on ad spend. On the y-axis, we have spend. And then what we want to do is create both a ROAS threshold and a cost threshold that makes sense for you and your business and your products. So it's depending on what your products are, how much they're selling, like what your average ROAS is right now, how many products there are. But you need to figure out a ROAS threshold and a cost threshold. And then everything that is above that ROAS threshold and it's above the cost threshold, you can call those products the profitable products. It's high ROAS and it's got enough spend to be significant. The reason we need a cost threshold is just for sort of statistical significance and data validity. If your product hasn't spent a lot, like if it's only spent $5, then whatever results it's getting is probably more due to random chance than it being due to the product's actual performance. So we have a cost threshold, and below the cost threshold, we don't really care whether it's a high ROAS or a low ROAS product. We just call it a fluke because it's below the cost threshold, which means it doesn't have a lot of data yet. So we don't want to judge these products. We don't want to judge them as saying, oh, they're profitable or costly. We don't want to, even if it's got a really high ROAS, we don't want to call it profitable yet because it's got a high ROAS with a low spend, right? And when it's below the cost threshold, the data isn't significant yet. And our goal with these flukes will be to get them above the cost threshold so that the data is significant, and then we can more confidently place them into either profitable or costly buckets, right? So your costly bucket is going to be everything above your cost threshold. So we can assume its data is actually valid, and then it's below your ROAS threshold, right? So you need to know your ROAS threshold and your cost threshold, and this is subjective and it's up to you. It's up to you to decide what thresholds to use when subdividing your products like this. But if you're really unsure and you need a sort of little bit of rule of thumb or guidance to go with, you might like to try past 90 days. You need a date range and it needs to be nice and long. And then you might do ROAS 300% and cost $20, right? So if you're totally unsure what you should do, just try these settings first. You can always try these settings and then adjust later up or down on any of the thresholds, depending on how many products you find that go into each bucket with the thresholds that you set. So this is flexible, right? And you can see what I mean there, like why these guys would be called flukes, because like if they've spent less than $20 in the past 90 days, that data isn't very significant. So we call them flukes. And then over here, down in the bottom left, you've got your zombies. So these are the fellas who have not spent a single dime and thus they don't have any clicks, they don't have any impressions, they don't have any conversions. So of course they have no return on ad spend because they haven't spent anything in the first place. So those are your zombies, and this setup fixes a problem that you have in Google Ads, which always happens when you're running e-commerce, Performance Max, or standard shopping. It's always going to happen if you've got lots of products grouped up into the same campaign. This setup fixes that problem. So what is the problem with a normal campaign setup? Let's say you haven't segmented your campaigns by ROAS performance, and you've got like a few hundred or a few thousand products all lumped in together in the same campaign, and those products have variable performance, right? So this is what happens normally when you don't have the campaign setup I'm teaching you today. You will, and this is just an example, let's say we've got 6 products. You'll get some products at a very high ROAS, right? So here we've got ROAS on the y-axis this time, and then on the x-axis we've got ad spend. So you're going to get some products that are way above the average ROAS for the campaign, right? You'll get these high ROAS products up here, and because you've got some high ROAS products that are bringing up your average, Google now allows these products down here to be way below the average. That's how averages work, right? The average is the average, so there's going to be some stuff above average, some stuff below average. And the problem is you're going to have a bunch of really profitable products that are dragging up the average, and then you're going to have some products that are so low in ROAS that they might be generating only a tiny amount of profit, or worse, they might be losing you money. Google doesn't know or care about your profit margins. So when everything's lumped together in one campaign, you've got these products down here, the ones below average are probably going to be sitting in a loss-making position for you. There's going to be a bunch that are actually loss-making and some that are just kind of breaking even or not doing very well at all. And the reason for that is because Google's target ROAS, you probably implemented a target return on ad spend on your campaign, and then that target return on ad spend isn't going to try and get every product above that level. It's only going to care about the average ROAS of the campaign. So the products that are below the average ROAS are going to be making a loss for you most probably, or at least some portion of those products, right? So this is what always happens when you don't make a performance-based campaign structure. I can guarantee to you that if you've got all your products lumped together in one campaign, there's going to be some degree of this happening. So what happens with our strategy? What happens when you transition to a performance-based 4 campaign setup using the campaigns I'm teaching you today? Something like this happens. So let me just actually show it to you more visually over here. So what we can do when we segment these guys into their own campaign for profitable, and then these guys go into their own campaign for costly, right? So we put them into their own campaign, and then what we can do, because they're in their own campaign, we can now set a specific target ROAS and a specific budget for these products. And that allows us to we're going to bring down the ROAS, right? We're going to do that deliberately, because when you bring down the ROAS, it allows the system to bid higher, and then that also allows you to spend more and get more on your profitable products. So what we do with the profitable products is go down in ROAS a little bit, and then we're actually able to boost the spend a lot. We have a much higher daily budget, and so these products move down and to the right? More spend into your profitable products. And something I forgot to mention, another thing that will always happen when you've just set this up normally without a performance-based structure is not only are you going to get some products above average, some products below average, with the below average products, a lot of them being loss-making. There's another thing that's almost always going to happen, which is Google's going to spend a lot more on the costly products. So you see the costly products are much further to the right here on the ad spend, and the profitable products are actually much further to the left here on the ad spend. And I put it like this deliberately because that's pretty much what almost always happens when you use sort of default settings in Google Ads. Not only do the less profitable products tend to take a hit and make a loss, Google's also going to spend a lot more on them. It will actually spend more on the costly products than it does on the profitable products, right? So our goal is twofold with this. We want to spend more on the profitable products. We do that by allowing them to have a slightly lower ROAS, which allows us to then boost the spend on them to over here, right? And they're still going to be really profitable. Your profitable products might be like 800% return on ad spend before you do this, and then you bring them down to 600% return on ad spend, and let's say you break even at 250, right? So your 600% return on ad spend average is still going to be really profitable for you, but you just bring it down a little bit, which allows you to spend more on those profitable products. And then the costly products, they're in their own campaign now, and what we're going to do with them is just reduce the spend. We're going to be a bit stricter on the budget specifically for these products, and we're going to reduce their cost per click bids. We're going to do that by increasing the target return on ad spend in the campaign for these products. So we're going to pull the spend down on these guys and then get the ROAS up a little bit as well to make sure that they're all above your break-even point, that they're all actually making profit for you. And when you do this, your average ROAS overall for the account is going to do this. It's going to go up. It's going to go up because now you're spending more on your profitable and less on your costly products. So something like that happens to the average ROAS. So that's what I was trying to show you here, is it moves from something like this to something like this. Profitable products have gone down and to the right. Costly products have gone up and to the left. Average ROAS gone up. So we're making more money for the same ad spend now. That's why we do this. That's why we have this campaign structure and strategy. So this is how your account probably looks if you haven't already set up a performance-based campaign structure for Performance Max or standard shopping. What we've got here, this is a report that I pulled using a paid tool, but don't worry, I'm going to show you how to pull this exact report manually so you don't have to pay for a fancy tool to do it. And I'm going to show you how to segment these products yourself manually within Google Ads. But for now, let's just look at the report I generated for an account I audited recently. And I used this tool to just quickly make a report of where the profitable products are, costly products, flukes, and zombies are sitting. And what I saw in this account, and the reason I'm showing this to you is that this is very typical, and this is what I see in most accounts that I audit, accounts that haven't set up this campaign structure before, accounts that are actively thinking about the products and campaigns in this way. You almost always see this happening. So this is probably happening in your account, and you need to watch out for this. What do I mean? What I mean is you've got a bunch of profitable products, right? Like 84 out of the 7,000 or so product SKUs in the account are classed as profitable, and those profitable products are responsible for 18K profit per month. And that's basically the lion's share. Almost all of the profit generated by this account was on these profitable products. And you're going to see something very similar in your account, like most of the profit, most of the revenue being generated by the profitable products, right? The profitable products get an 8.8 ROAS. They generate 31K revenue out of the total 58K revenue generated per month in this account. And yet, and here's the fun part, and this is probably happening in your account too, and yet Google only spends $3,500 per month on these products. And by the way, this is an account that spends 20K per month. So a minority of the spend goes to profitable products, and then more than 50% of the spend goes into the costly products. And the costly products are barely above break even. They're at 235 profit per month. 20K revenue, which is, looks good on paper, but then you calculate the actual gross profit after ad spend and it's barely above break even. And yet Google's spending the majority of the money on the costly products, because when I audited this account, they hadn't set up their campaigns to correct this issue that always comes up. And then you've got your flukes products, they're just above break even as well, and they've spent so little. Total cost is 6K, but number of SKUs is 2K. So like spending a few bucks per product basically, which is really not enough to get significant data. So the flukes, they need to have a bit more spend per product before we can actually assess whether they should be classed as profitable or costly. And then here's the other fun part, and this happens in almost every account. Like maybe 50% of products are zombies. A lot of the SKUs in the account are going to be zombies. They are going to be SKUs that get 0 spend, 0 clicks, 0 impressions, and any one of these could be a winner, right? Like if we actually force the system to test and spend on the zombie products, then we're going to find some winners, some losers. The losers will cut, the winners will move into the profitable campaign. So our goal with the zombies would be to revive them, right? And you're going to see a bunch of zombies in your account if you haven't previously segmented them out into their own campaign. So this is how your account probably looks as well. I'm sorry to say, you're going to have underspend on profitable products, overspend on costly, too many flukes and too many zombies, right? So we need a new structure that's going to accomplish this. Spend more on profitable products and increase your profit, reduce the spend on costly and increase its ROAS, and then with flukes, the goal is to spend more per product so that we can then graduate it up into one of these two buckets, either profitable or costly. And then zombies, the goal is just to spend anything, to revive the zombies, actually get some data, actually see which one of these could be a winner and which one of them are going to be a loser. So with the zombies, we want to graduate them also into probably the flukes first, spend a little bit to graduate them into the flukes campaign. And then in the flukes campaign, you get even more spend, you focus on upping the spend further so that they can graduate into either profitable or costly. So that's what we're going to accomplish with a new structure where we build campaigns for each of those 4 buckets. So let's do this together. This is what I'm going to show you how to do. Feel free to screen cap this screen if you need a reminder, because I'm actually just going to walk you through it together right now. So let's go into an account, and what you want to do is you want to come to your products tab. So on the left hand sidebar, make sure you've got all campaigns selected and go to the products tab. Now, by the way, you might not see the products tab here. Like if you don't see the products tab here at all, that might be because you've never run a standard shopping campaign before. Maybe you're only using Performance Max. That is fine. If you want, what you'll need to do is just set up and launch a standard shopping campaign. You don't actually need to use it. You don't actually need to spend any money in there. You can just set it up and then immediately pause it. And then once you've done that, if you're not seeing the products tab here previously, once you've done that step with launching your standard shopping, you should see the products tab popping up here after you've done that. Okay, and if you still don't see it, you should see it, but if you still don't see it, you can actually just go into an individual Performance Max campaign and then you will definitely see the products tab. But let's look at the products tab for all campaigns. So go all campaigns, go to the products tab. If you don't have the products tab, then set it up by launching a standard shopping campaign just in sort of test mode, don't actually spend on it. Okay, and once you are in your products tab, you're going to be seeing all your products listed out there, and now you can create your filters. So let's do a ROAS filter first, conversions, and then conversion value over cost. And then let's say we were using a filter of 3. Okay. So you input your ROAS filter and then you put in a cost filter. So these are the exact thresholds that we were talking about before. So let's say we're going to use a cost filter of 25, just as an example. And then make sure to set a nice long date range when you do this. So I'm going to look at, let's say, the past 120 days, past 4 months. Now you will have filtered out your products for profitable, above ROAS threshold, above cost threshold. Download this into a Google Sheet, and no need to rename it. Let's just download that. Okay, that's now downloaded. Let's open the sheet just to check it. Okay, great. I've got all my profitable products here. I'm just going to rename the tab down here, profitable. Let's just call it by the same name as the campaign we're going to create. And then now let's do costly products. So for costly products, we just need to do the opposite of the ROAS threshold. It will be below, and then let's do 3.001 just to make sure, because if you do, just in case there's anything that's bang on 3 on the dot. So apply that. Okay, and then now we can download again. So let's go over here, download to Google Sheets. Download that. Okay, report downloaded to Sheets. Let's open the sheet. And then in here we have our costly products. So I'm just going to name the tab that. We're going to do a sheet for each of the products essentially. So let's now change my thresholds. Let's get rid of the ROAS threshold and let's do cost is less than. Oops. Cost is less than or equal to 25. Apply that. And then also cost is greater than 0. So these are the flukes, right? In between 0 to the cost threshold, those are going to be our flukes. So run that filter. Now we're looking at the flukes, and let's download that. Okay, and now we've downloaded the sheet. Let's open it up, and in here we have our flukes, and now we can get our zombies. So cost is 0. Then we have our zombies. Okay, so let's now download this into a Google Sheet. Download that. Okay, report downloaded. Let's open that sheet, and in here we have our zombies. So you can rename the file name as well if you want, but I just always change the tab name there as I'm going along because I don't want to forget which one is which as we're going through. And now you've got one file for each of the buckets, right? And you're going to be able to see, okay, profitable products. Actually, what you want to do is get rid of the top title rows, and then profitable products. So we've got 162 profitable products in this account. Let's do this as well. So you want to do this on each of your tabs. View, freeze one row. So now it's going to freeze that top row there. And then we can come over to our cost column, do equals. So we're going to do our totals down here. So that's my cost total. Let's just format that into dollars. Yeah, I have pounds, and let's do dollars. There we go. So format that into dollars. And then we want to do the same for our conversion value column. So that's our revenue. And then ROAS is this column here. We're going to just do equals revenue divided by cost. And then we're going to see that in this account, based on the thresholds that we used, we have 162 profitable products, and they're spending 28K per 4 months because we did past 4 months. They're getting 144K revenue and a 5x ROAS, right? So then you just do the same thing for each of the other buckets that we created. And then format as dollars, copy that into conversion columns, calculate our ROAS. These are the zombies, so it's just going to go 0, 0. Alright guys, so now I've just repeated the steps and I've made my totals for each of the different sheets. So my zombies obviously are, let's just freeze my top row. So you can see that obviously the zombies have 0 spend, which is why they have 0 conversion value, 0 ROAS. And I've totaled up the flukes and the costly and the profitable. Now what we can do is we can add a custom label to these products in the product feed to tell us which product is which. And what you need to do, you're going to need to do this in your product feed. The steps are going to be different depending on how you're creating your product feed, but you're going to need to take all these item IDs over here, and then for these item IDs you want to add the custom label profitable, right? If we just go in Google Ads, go modify columns and product attributes. Oh, we've got the custom label columns already there. So Google gives you all these custom columns over here that you can use to add your labels, right? So you want to pick one of the custom columns, and then for all the item IDs that fall into profitable, use, let's say, custom column 0 and label this profitable. And then you're going to use custom column 0 and label these ones costly. These are the costly products. Total of 109K spend, 122K revenue in this account for 1.1 ROAS. Here are the flukes. So you take these item IDs, you add the custom label flukes, and then what you're going to have is you're going to have a custom label for profitable, costly, flukes, and zombies that you've built manually. And then when you do a campaign restructure, what you do is you filter the campaigns by the custom labels. So let's just show you an example. So what you can then do is you've got your labels now set up in the product feed, and when you're creating your campaigns and asset groups within Google Ads, you can now filter by the labels that you added in at the custom label section. So let's just pretend we're creating a new asset group over here. When you're making your new campaign or restructuring your existing campaign, you come into the asset group setup screen, and in this setup screen, you're going to find this bit here that says product groups. And this is now where you can use a selection of products, and then you can find the custom label option here, and then use whichever custom label was the one where you added in your tier names. And then you can select the custom label that is correct for that campaign. If we're doing the profitable campaign right now, we select the profitable custom label and then generate the campaign. And then you'll be able to generate campaigns based exactly segmented for the custom labels that you've created based on these tiers that we've set up on ROAS and cost threshold. And then what you want to do is you want to set the appropriate budget and ROAS target for each campaign. So profitable products, for example, they're getting a 5x ROAS and they're spending 28k per 4 months. So let's do that. It was per 120 days I did. So they're spending about 237 per day, and they're getting an average spend per day. So profitable products, what we want to do is we want to bring the ROAS down a bit and get the spend up. So what we'd probably do with these guys is once they're in their own campaign, we'd give them a daily budget that's higher, obviously. Let's just give it a nice wide daily budget of 400 because we want to spend more on these guys. And then to spend more, we need to lower the ROAS target. So we might go ROAS target 400% once these guys are segmented out into their own profitable campaign. And that's how we're going to spend more and get more from our profitable products. It's by increasing the budget and decreasing the ROAS target. And then costly, right? Costly products have spent that divided by 120 days, which is the date range that I did. So that's their current spend per day. Their current average ROAS is just 1.1x return on ad spend. So what we need to do with these guys is get the return on ad spend target way up, right? Like they should be at a minimum of ROAS target 300%. And in this case, because my target that I want to get them to is so much higher than where they are currently, I might actually start first with 200%, let that stabilize, then go maybe 250, then maybe go 300. But let's just zoom out. My ultimate target will be to get them to 300% ROAS, so they're actually generating a good profit for me. And then spend per day, they're currently spending almost 1k per day, right? So when these are in their own campaign, they are going to have a lower daily budget. I'm probably going to give them a daily budget of maybe 500 or maybe 400 to start with, right? I might actually start with something like 500 daily budget and 200% ROAS, and then work that up to spending even less and getting a higher return on ad spend for my costly products. So that's how we're going to move these products up and to the left on that graph that I showed you previously. And then you've got your flukes, right? Now the flukes don't spend enough per product. There's like 3,000 products here and they've spent like 20,000 bucks. So it's like $7 ad spend per product on average. So let's do that divided by 120. That's going to be the average spend per day across these products. They get a low ROAS, right? But we're not really going to look too much at ROAS for flukes because they're flukes, right? They don't have enough spend. So our goal with flukes will actually just be to get more spend per day. So if they're currently spending 171 per day, we'll put them into their own campaign and we'll give it a budget of, let's say, 250. And then importantly, in this campaign, we're going to do no target ROAS. So we increase the budget, we might go up to 300 and then no target ROAS. Or another strategy could be we keep the budget the same, but we decrease the products, right? We just slim that down to maybe 1,000 products or maybe 500 products and really concentrate the spend on one batch of flukes, get those spending, get them graduated, and then once they're graduated, then we do the next batch, right? So there's a couple of ways you can do this, but like one really simple way would just be to get the systems to spend more overall by increasing the daily budget once these products are in their own campaign, and then no target ROAS, right? The whole goal here is just to spend and get data. The target ROAS might limit us and prevent us from getting that data, right? And then similar process with the zombies. So the zombies are just going to be 0, 0, 0, right? They're not spending anything. The whole goal with zombies is just to get them to spend anything. So we segment them into their own campaign, and then we just give it a budget per day of per day. We might give them a budget per day of like 50 or 100, and no ROAS target in this campaign. We just give it a budget and no ROAS target so that it's in maximize conversions mode or maximize conversion value mode. It doesn't really matter which one you use. And using these settings, we're now telling Google, hey, please just spend on my zombies. Please get some spend, any spend into these zombies. You're really kind of forcing Google's hand at this point to try and get it to actually spend something on zombies that it hadn't tested previously. And yeah, give it a budget, give it a low-ish daily budget. When these products graduate, you move it into either flukes or profitable or costly, depending on what kind of spend and ROAS the products got once they actually got some spend in your zombies campaign. So that's the general process right there. I've walked you through this. Again, screen grab this if you need to refer to it later. A few notes now, like transitioning your campaigns. So you've got an existing campaign structure and you want to transition to this new campaign structure that I have just shown you. You've got a couple of options here. You can either restructure your existing campaigns, or you can just create totally new campaigns for the new campaign structure. There's pros and cons to both methods, so let me walk you through the pros and cons so you can decide. If you restructure your existing campaigns, there are some pros here. It's going to keep the conversion data, right? You're going to be in campaigns that already have historical conversion data, which is huge. That's really important for making sure you get through the learning periods quicker once you've got the new campaign structure. So that's a big advantage of just keeping your existing campaigns but then restructuring within those campaigns, not launching new campaigns. On the flip side, you can't control the spend change very easily, right? Like what you can do, if you create totally new campaigns, what you can actually do now is you can control the spend. Like you can maybe keep your new campaigns at a lower spend, give it a small daily budget at the beginning while still running your older campaigns, right? And then you can slowly transition the spend, start decreasing the spend in your old campaigns, increasing the spend in your new campaigns until they flipped places and new campaigns are spending more, and then eventually you can just turn off the old campaigns. So the advantage here is you get to control that spend distribution, and that makes it a potentially safer way to transition, because with the other methods, restructuring existing campaigns, it's basically boom, like you've got your old campaigns, then one day you restructure, and then boom, 100% of your budget is going into the new campaign structure. That's a very sudden change that can cause a bit more of an upset, a bit more volatility to your results. But of course, because it's been a sudden change, the learning period is going to be over quicker. So there's going to be more volatility, but that volatility will be over quicker because 100% of the budget is going into the new campaigns. They'll be learning faster. But if you create new campaigns, you'll be able to control that spend, but you get the disadvantage that the new campaigns you've created now have zero conversions. Zero conversions means it will take longer to learn. So creating new campaigns, it's going to take a whole lot longer to get transitioned over, but it's potentially a bit safer in terms of being less volatile. Restructuring within your existing campaigns, like you keep the existing campaigns and then just completely restructure within there, it's going to be boom, like a lot of volatility on the day you switch over, but that volatility will be over quicker, right? But you're not going to be able to control spend or moderate the speed of your transition. So pros and cons, and which one you decide on is really going to be up to you and what your sort of risk tolerance is and what your ability to tolerate volatility is like. Then you need to think about refreshing your campaign structure. So once you've done this for the first time, you can now let your new campaign structure just run for a while, but you're going to need to decide a refresh schedule. You can do it like once per month, you can do it once per quarter. Those are the main options that I recommend. I wouldn't recommend daily or weekly. That's a bit too fast, especially if you're doing this manually without a tool to help you with the campaign refresh. But it kind of depends when you're deciding on your refresh schedule. Depends on your conversion volumes, first of all. So if you have really high conversion volumes, then a faster refresh cycle is more tolerable, right? If you've got really low conversion volumes, then you're going to have to use a slower refresh cycle, because otherwise each time you refresh, you won't be getting enough conversion data to get good learnings on where the products are now within the campaign structure. The pros and cons, like your slower refresh cycle is going to be easier to manage and more stable, especially easier to manage if you're doing this manually, if you don't have a tool to automate the refresh for you. Whereas a faster refresh cycle is going to be more responsive to changes, right? It's going to be a little bit more volatile, but it's also going to be more responsive to changes. When you're refreshing faster, things will move between the tiers more quickly, so they'll be in the right tier sooner, but things will be more volatile. Let's talk about asset group structure quickly. So, okay, we've talked a lot about campaign structure here and going into the full campaign structure based on ROAS and cost thresholds. I didn't mention asset groups yet. So asset groups, I recommend you just do a simple asset group structure, same asset group structure in each of these campaigns. So just create this asset group structure once and then use that same structure for each of the campaigns so that you can see each of these campaigns here, same asset group structure. And what you probably want to do with asset group structure is just have one campaign per product category, right? So just for example, let's say I'm advertising this dog supplement brand over here. I would probably just do one asset group per each of these categories. So one asset group for superfood granules, one for supplements, one for fish oils, so on and so forth. And then the other optional, you can break out your bestsellers as their own standalone asset group as well. That can work quite well in some circumstances. So either just a simple asset group by category structure or category plus a bestsellers asset group. That's probably my most frequented and most recommended way to go about your asset group structure. And then, yeah, a couple of automation options here. So I've shown you the manual way of creating your product lists and creating a report so that you can see the performance across each tier. And if you do it manually, then it's going to take a bit of time to do it, each month or each couple of months whenever you want to refresh. So these tools here, they all have different purposes, but all of them can automate that process for you if you want to use these tools. My agency uses these tools and they can just save you a bit of time. All of the tools actually have other functions, and doing this product labeling is just one of their many functions, right? So a couple of options for you here. Feel free to check out these guys. I'm not affiliated. I don't get paid for recommending any of them. These are just some tools that me and my agency use that include this feature that help us speed up this process a little bit. But you can do it all manually. Feel free to do it all manually if you want the slightly longer but cheaper approach. And then finally, that's all for today, guys. But if you need a Google Ads audit on your Google Ads account, you can get your Google Ads account audited by me personally. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to find and prioritize every 80/20 growth lever in your account for you, and then present to you a document that just shows you prioritized by most important at the top all the way down to the least important. I'm going to show you, okay, here are the exact growth levers you need to pull in the exact correct order so that you get the maximum bang for your time spent. And I have a limited capacity for personal audits that I do myself, not by my team. So do bear that in mind. And if this is interesting for you, if you want to get a free Google Ads audit on your account, go to this link here. It's down in the description below as well, bigflare.com/audit. In today's video, we did a deep dive on what I call the ROAS performance-based structure for e-commerce Google Ads. Now, if you want some other options for your Performance Max campaign structure, then check out this video up here. In this video, I'm going to cover the top 3 campaign structures you can use, and I'm going to give you the exact conversion thresholds to help guide you in deciding which one is right for you. So go ahead and check it out. I think it'll be useful for you, and I'll see you on the next one.